Hi everyone, welcome to the last video in this 4-part series on MQTT Sparkplug. So far, we have configured and tested communication between the Edge of Network node and AWS IoT Core. In this video, we'll set up a marketplace product IoT Bridge for SiteWise and test the end-to-end data flow. Let's go ahead and install IoT Bridge. To install and configure IoT Bridge, first we'll go to AWS Marketplace and look for it. I'll select the IoT Bridge and then I'll subscribe to it. There are two ways to deploy it, and we'll pick the CloudFormation option because it creates all the necessary resources, including the VPC, EC2, and so on. We'll leave the default settings and then continue to launch. Now we need to configure a few parameters in CloudFormation. So we'll go next, and then for the stack name, we'll say IoT Bridge SiteWise. And I'll be picking T3 medium. And for the network config, I'll use the existing key. And for SSH, I'll be using my IP address range. And then you can scroll through, leave the default settings, and go next. Finally, I'll acknowledge and click on submit. This should take about few minutes to deploy all the resources. Now our CloudFormation stack is created and the EC2 instance for IoT Bridge is ready to use. We'll do a series of steps to prepare the IoT Bridge, and all this is documented. So I'll post a link in the description. So first, we'll upload the certificates and keys that we downloaded earlier for IoT Bridge. And now we'll do a SSH to the EC2 instance to move these files to a target directory. So we are done uploading the files, and the last step is to configure a property file. In this property file, we'll make a few changes starting with the server URL. We'll replace the server endpoint with the endpoint of AWS IoT Core. We can find that from settings and endpoint. Next, we'll update the server name to AWS IoT Core. And finally, we'll update the path to certificate and keys. I'll pause it here and make the changes. So I made all the changes. I'll save it and restart the application. So with this, we are done configuring the IoT Bridge. Now I'll have a log file stream running to see how IoT Bridge is translating those Sparkplug messages for AWS IoT SiteWise. As you can see, IoT Bridge is now successfully connected to AWS IoT Core and listening for Sparkplug messages. Now let us take a quick look at IoT SiteWise. As you can see, IoT Bridge automatically created some tracking resources to monitor the data flow. Now let's go back to the architecture. Since we have the IoT Bridge ready, we'll do a end-to-end testing of data flow from the edge of network all the way to IoT SiteWise. Now we'll go back to the console and check a few things. We'll make sure our MQTT test client is still subscribed to the Sparkplug topics. Next, we'll ensure the IoT Bridge log stream is running. Now we'll trigger Sparkplug messages by force updating the ignition transmission module. Before that, we'll change the encoding from JSON to protobuf. And now we'll force update the transmission module. Now you can see the Sparkplug messages flowing into AWS IoT Core, and the IoT Bridge log shows that it's translating ignition UDTs into SiteWise models and assets. Finally, we look at these newly created models and assets in IoT SiteWise. Under models, we are able to see the pump template that we created back in ignition. And scrolling down, we were able to see also the asset that we created from this template, along with the measurement values. So we just saw how IoT Bridge was able to discover new assets and models and create those in AWS IoT SiteWise. Now let's test two more scenarios. We'll go to Ignition Designer and update the tag value to 200 and observe the behavior in SiteWise. As you can see, the change in the tag value is almost instantly reflected in SiteWise. In the second scenario, we'll create a new asset and a template in Ignition and see how that reflects in IoT SiteWise. First, we'll create a new asset using the pump template and assign some dummy values. Next, in addition to the pump data type, we'll create a new data type called motor. And we'll add a measurement for RPM and assign some dummy value. So we have our new asset and model ready. So we'll force update and see how that shows up in IoT SiteWise. Going back to models, you can see the motor asset model showed up immediately. Similarly, under assets, we can see the pump 2 asset, which we just created in Ignition with the measurement values. And this concludes the walkthrough for this video. To summarize our learnings, we've seen how IoT Bridge can discover new models and assets from Sparkplug messages and automatically create them in IoT SiteWise. And then how it can help ingest tag values in real time into IoT SiteWise. We've also seen how to use a local MQTT broker for low latency and offline operations. Here are a few considerations before you decide if IoT Bridge for SiteWise is the right fit for your environment. The changes to asset model in the source system does not automatically update IoT SiteWise, so you may need to recreate the asset models. And you may need to spend additional effort to create and manage asset hierarchies in SiteWise when new assets are created. And also, IoT Bridge does not support high availability at the moment, so a workaround may be required. Lastly, IoT Bridge is deployed as an EC2 instance, so there is no serverless option available at the moment. Please see the links below for additional reference materials and come back to us with any questions. Thank you for watching.